The Amazon makes people disappear, not with quicksand or snakes, with things that smile like your brother but walk like a spider. Mythical creatures pulled from Peruvian and Brazilian folklores, whispered about in river villages and carved into the fears of anyone who stayed too long. They don't want to be found. They don't want to be filmed. They want silence and obedience. One punishes trespassers with fire. Another takes your shape and leaves you behind. These are the ones that twisted the jungle's rules. That made the trails too quiet. That turned familiar sounds into warnings. The forest is still alive, but parts of it now belong to something else entirely. They say it was once a man, a healer, a forest shaman so respected that even the jaguars made room when he walked. But power does strange things to people. He wanted more, not money, not fame, something worse. He wanted to live forever. And when the forest heard that, it granted his wish. Just not the way he expected. His name was swallowed, his soul twisted, and what came out of that ritual wasn't a man anymore. Locals call it Mapinguari now, a creature wrapped in red, rotting fur with a single eye that glows like coal and a mouth that splits his belly wide open, full of teeth too human to belong to a beast. Some swear he's part sloth, part demon, part forest gone wrong. But no one who's seen him up close bothers to compare. They're too busy running. He doesn't stalk you like a predator. He just arrives. One moment the trees are trees, the next they're shaking. Tents collapse, tools disappear. You wake up to silence and a smell like old meat in a wet sock. And then you see it, the broken branches. The shredded ground, the one enormous footprint, left behind, always backwards. They say it's a curse that he's doomed to walk with his feet reversed so his past can never find him. Honestly, it just makes it harder to tell where he went, which is probably the point. There's a story from a logging team that set up camp near a remote patch of forest where locals refused to work. They laughed it off, chopped for 2 days straight. Third day, they woke up to every single axe head gone, cleanly removed. No footprints, no tracks, just bark torn off trees in long vertical lines like claw marks. One man followed the trail. He came back pale and barefoot, holding one boot, said he found the axe heads melted into the mud, and a figure standing still, half submerged in the swamp, mouth wide open. He didn't look twice. No one did. That camp's still abandoned. Mapinguari doesn't protect the forest. He punishes it. Or maybe he punishes people who try to tame it. And while most predators hide in the shadows, this one doesn't bother. He wants to be seen. Because if you've seen him, it means he's done waiting. And while most predators hide in the shadows, this one doesn't bother. He wants to be seen. Because if you've seen him, it means he's done waiting. That's what makes him one of the worst things still roaming the Brazilian Amazon. Not a hunter, but a warning carved straight out of the region's oldest folklore. And if he terrifies you, good. He's supposed to. Because at least he gives you a sign. A footprint, a stench, a scream. The next one, he just whistles, and then walks in wearing your brother's face. In the Amazon, if you hear someone whistling, don't answer. Not even to mock it. Not even to yell back. Especially not to yell back. Because the El Tuncha doesn't like to be acknowledged. And once he knows your voice, he won't stop following it. He comes from the deepest corners of Peruvian folklore, and he is exactly the kind of story that starts as a joke and ends with your friends wondering where your tent went. They say he's a spirit, not a ghost, not a demon, something older. Born from those who died violently in the jungle and never stopped being angry about it. He doesn't have a face you can describe, or a body that stays still long enough to draw. What people remember is the sound, a whistle that copies yours, mimics your tone, plays it back through the leaves like a twisted echo. First you hear it in front of you, then behind, then somewhere too close. A park ranger once said he followed the sound thinking a child was lost. He found a clearing with no footprints, no signs of life, just his own voice whistling back at him, perfectly, mockingly, from 6 directions at once. He didn't run, he just froze. That was his mistake. El Tunche doesn't like hesitation. The next time he heard the whistle, it was inside his tent. Some say the creature only appears to the guilty. Others say it chooses at random. I say it gets bored. Because there's no pattern, no mercy, and definitely no rules. It has made whole stretches of the Amazon forest feel cursed. Hikers skip them entirely. Locals refuse to say its name after sunset. Even the animals avoid certain trails, where the trees seem thinner and the wind always knows your tune. He ruined the jungle not with violence, but with paranoia. No one whistles anymore. Not to call for help. Not even for fun. Because once the echo starts, it's already too late. But don't worry. The next creature doesn't need to copy your voice. He'll just wait until the music starts and come find you on the dance floor. In the Amazon, no party is truly safe. Not when the Boto might be in the room. He's handsome, charming, always wearing a white hat, and he smells just a little too clean for someone who claims to live nearby. But don't ask him where he's from, and whatever you do, don't follow him home. The legend of the Boto comes from Brazilian folklore, especially along the river communities where people know better than to trust strangers with perfect teeth. They say he's a pink river dolphin by day. Yes, an actual dolphin. And a seductive man by night. He rises from the river when the music starts, dresses better than anyone in the village, and always knows how to dance. That's how he picks his target. One story tells of a girl who vanished after a festa junina, last seen dancing with a man no one else recognized. Her family searched the riverbanks for days. When she finally came back, she had no memory of where she'd been, but she wouldn't stop humming the tune they had danced to. 9 months later, she gave birth to a child with soft skin, eyes that flickered like water, and a laugh that made candles flicker. The Boto didn't kidnap her, he just borrowed her for a while. That's his specialty. Seduction without warning, disappearance without struggle, and maybe, if you're lucky, a child who refuses to go near boats. But that's not the only reason people say he ruined parts of the Amazon. It's the fear he left behind. People stopped trusting strangers. Some stopped throwing parties altogether. Even the pink dolphins, the real ones, are treated with a mix of awe and suspicion. Every woman who meets a new man is suddenly asked if he has a hat, and no one laughs when he does. In places where the Boto is believed to wander, there are fewer smiles, or less music, and a lingering silence every time someone says they're going out, just for a swim. But at least he waits for the dance to start. The next one is already in your house, already in your voice, and already wearing your shoes, you'll notice, if you look down. No village along the river lets children go barefoot anymore. Not since people started spotting tracks that didn't make sense. Footsteps leading into the forest with no return path, like whoever left them never came back, or worse, never meant to. Locals know the pattern. One normal foot, one twisted like a hoof. And when they see it, they know the Cholachaki is nearby. In Peruvian and Acrean folklore, he's a forest trickster, small and misshapen, but clever in ways that don't belong to this world. He doesn't charge or roar. He waits, he watches, then he chooses a shape. Some say he prefers to look like someone you know, a cousin, a lost friend. Once it was a girl's grandmother, right down to the shawl and the limp. She followed her for half a mile before she realized the footsteps weren't quite right. And by then, of course, it was too late. The real terror of the Cholachaki isn't what he does. It's what he is. A bad copy, a slight error, a glitch in the shape of love. And when he lures you into the undergrowth, into the river, into whatever trap he's set, there's never a struggle. He doesn't need one. You walked there yourself. What's worse is he doesn't always finish the job. People have come back changed, forgetful, blank-eyed, saying things like, "She's still out there," or "It wasn't really him." The Amazon forest has hundreds of species that mimic others, frogs that look like leaves, snakes that look like vines, but only one imitates your mother's voice and smiles with too many teeth. Whole regions stopped trusting their own memories. Some stopped speaking names aloud, afraid the Cholachaki might be listening, ready to wear that face next. He didn't just make the jungle unsafe, he made it unrecognizable. And if you ever find yourself walking behind someone familiar, look down. If one of their feet is wrong, don't run. It already knows you saw it. And unlike the next one, he doesn't want to trick you. He wants to chase. Some monsters chase with claws, others with fire. This one uses rules. The Curupira is older than most people realize. A figure from Brazilian folklore who looks almost like a boy, until you see his feet. They're backward. Not bruised or twisted, but fully reversed, heel to toe, so his tracks lead you away from where he's actually hiding. And trust me, he is hiding. not to ambush you, to test you. He doesn't need to scream or shapeshift. He just waits for you to break the forest code. Cut a tree you shouldn't, kill something without reason, light a fire where things don't burn. That's when he shows up, usually barefoot, always grinning, with hair that burns like candlelight and eyes that don't blink. There's a story about a hunter who entered a stretch of the Amazon with 4 men and 2 dogs. They went in with gear, maps, even satellite radio. What came out 3 days later was just the hunter, covered in ash, shoes missing, and whispering, "He walks behind us." The radios were found later, crushed into the bark of a tree that hadn't been cut, but had bled anyway. The Curupira doesn't need to kill. He makes you regret. Some say he bends paths, others say he loops time. You walk for hours and end up where you started. Only your boots are worn through and your food is wet and rotting. That's if you're lucky. Sometimes he lets you go, but not without a mark, a burn, a missing nail, a scream you can't explain. And the worst part? He's not the villain. He's the one trying to keep the Amazon alive. It's just that he's completely, violently done asking nicely. He ruined the jungle not by invading it, but by making sure no one else could. And if you ever find yourself lost with your own footprints ahead of you, don't panic. You're exactly where he wants you. And if you think walking backward might help, the next one's been doing that since the day he was cursed, with bigger feet and a louder growl. There are snakes in the Amazon, and then there's Monai. Don't confuse the two. Snakes slither. Monai controls. He isn't just a serpent, he's the serpent. Towering, horned, with a body thick enough to coil around trees like vines, and eyes that glow with something smarter than hunger. In Guarani and northern Brazilian folklore, he's one of 7 cursed brothers, each more monstrous than the last. Monai was the one who got the power to command animals, especially snakes, and make people disappear without ever touching them. His voice was enough, hypnotic, coiling around your mind like his body never had to. One village tells the story of a girl who followed a strange song into the trees. Her friends say she looked calm, peaceful, like she was dreaming with her eyes open. They found her days later curled at the base of a tree, barefoot and blinking like she had just woken up. But she wouldn't speak. Not until someone lit a fire and broke the trance. She screamed and then said one word: horns. That's how they knew. Monai doesn't lure you with promises. He doesn't need to. He just lets your brain collapse politely. And if you happen to resist, he still has teeth. Sharp enough to crush bone and smooth enough to leave no marks. Entire stretches of the Amazon forest are silent because of him. No birds, no frogs, not even insects. The locals call those places too calm. You'd think that would be a good thing, until you notice all the animals have left, but the tracks haven't. He ruined the jungle by removing the noise, the chaos, the things that warn you you're not alone. Now some areas are quiet enough to hear your own breath. That's when his starts. And while most monsters bite first, Monai doesn't. He stares. Long enough for you to wonder if you imagined him. Long enough for the vines to move. And by the time you remember how to scream, it's her turn. And she doesn't ask for silence. She brings the flood. The river rises without warning. 1 minute it's calm, the next it's clawing at the banks like it wants to take something back. And that's when the stories begin. Not about the current or the rain, but about her. The dead dolphin, the black one. The thing that used to be the Boto and came back wrong. Most people know the pink river dolphin from Brazilian folklore, charming, seductive, always smiling. This is not him. This is the shadow he left behind. They call it the dark Boto, or simply the Boto Preto, and it doesn't flirt. It drowns. They say he was killed, speared, netted, butchered like a fish by men who didn't believe in curses. They tossed the body, laughed, and moved on. But something didn't stay dead. And now, when the river floods, things come back that weren't there before. A fisherman once said he saw a dolphin in the shallows during a thunderstorm. It didn't surface for air. It just stared, its eyes too round, too human. He turned away for a second, and when he looked back, the boat was empty. No splash, no scream, just silence. The villagers found his line still cast, the hook still baited, as if he'd been removed, not taken. The Boto Preto doesn't leave children behind like his pink cousin. He leaves questions. How did the door open? Why was the floor wet? Who let the baby crawl to the shore? He doesn't need to seduce. He doesn't even need to show up. He's become a shape in the corner of your vision, a ripple that moves against the current, a hum in the water when no one's swimming. And that's how he ruined parts of the Amazon, by turning the river from a source of life into something to fear. Now, when the floodwaters rise, people close their windows, pull their children close, and stay silent until the current calms. Because if he comes to your shore, you won't see him. You'll feel it. The pull, the weight, the knowing. And if you survive, you'll never swim again. Which is fine, because the last creature on this list doesn't want the water. He wants what comes after it. They say the forest swallows what doesn't belong. But there's one creature that doesn't hide in the trees or wait in the rivers. He walks out in the open. He doesn't whisper. He roars. His name is Kappa Lobo, and unlike the others, he doesn't trick, seduce, or haunt. He breaks. From the outer edges of Amazonian folklore, he's described as a towering, half-human beast with the head of an anteater or sometimes a tapir, depending on who's still scared enough to describe him. Muscles like tree roots, claws like rusted machetes, and a face that doesn't blink because it doesn't need to. When he appears, it's always violent. Not quiet, not gradual. Bones snapped, dogs missing, chickens torn open like fruit. One tale tells of a man who followed strange hoof prints near his village, fresh, deep, circling the chicken coop. He found one chicken alive, trembling, and something else, a trail of blood leading into the trees, but no drag marks. Whatever took it walked on two legs. The Kappa Lobo hates one thing above all: noise, drunken singing, loud laughter, guns fired into the air for fun. He shows up when the party gets too loud and ends it with more silence than anyone wanted. Some say he was once a warrior who broke a tribal law and was cursed to roam in rage forever. Others say he's a forest guardian pushed past his limit. Either way, he's not subtle, and he's left villages so traumatized that entire festivals were canceled for years. In his territory, no one shouts. No one plays music at night. And if a bottle breaks or a child screams too long, everyone stops to listen. Not to the sound, but to what might come after. The Kappa Lobo didn't ruin the Amazon by twisting it. He bulldozed it, loudly. And now his silence hangs over everything like humidity. And when people say this jungle isn't what it used to be, they're not wrong. Because these 8 didn't just haunt the forest, they changed it, left it marked. Maybe the Amazon was never meant to be explored. Not all of it. Maybe it was supposed to stay strange. Too loud in some places, too quiet in others, and always just a little smarter than the people walking through it. These creatures didn't come from one single myth or one single tribe. They came from whispers shared along rivers, between campfires, across borders. Brazil, Peru, the Guarani, the Ticuna, every corner of the rainforest seems to agree on one thing. Something out there doesn't want us to feel welcome. And honestly, mission accomplished. These aren't stories you outgrow. They're stories that grow with you, that watch from the trees, that make you rethink every leaf that rustles, every whistle in the dark, every footprint that looks almost human. The Amazon is still there, yes. Still green. Still breathing. But thanks to them, it's not just a forest anymore. It's a test. And the only rule is, don't fail it. Or better yet, don't go in at all.